boys and girls. I hope you're enjoying your break. We're going to do an activity today that relates to telling and writing time in hours and half hours, and we're going to be using an analog and a digital clock. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to read the book. It's About Time. How can you tell the time of day? It is time for school. Or time for play. Can you guess what time it is when the sun rises in the sky, when the shadows fall upon the ground, or when the moon is way up high? Which meal comes in the morning? At noon? Which meal is right? And after school, when the day is done, which meal do you eat at night? To catch an airplane, train, or boat, is it better to be early or late? But how do you know if you're on time? A clock will set you straight. A digital clock shows the hours and minutes with bright numbers that glow. The hands of an analog clock will point to the time you need to know. Find the time on a sign, on a table, or wrist. We find time in many places. We can use time to count down to lift off and to measure our speed in races. How will you spend your time tomorrow? Today will be soon gone. Hours, days, weeks, and months, time marches on. Why is it important to tell time? Have you ever been late to get somewhere? What was it like? Right now, I want you to think of some things that you have to be able to tell time to do. Some things that make telling time important. Think about that right now. Okay, I'm sure you've thought of many different reasons why telling time is so important. It's important to get places on time. We have appointments, we have schedules. Telling time is something that you do every single day, and it's one of those necessary skills. Time is a way that we can order and measure events in our day, week, year, and life. It is important to be able to tell time because of our work, play, and fun time is measured by it. If you can read a clock, it will help you plan your day. Time helps us to answer these questions. How much longer is math class? What time is lunch? When is it time for me to go to bed? Clocks are used to measure time. Types of clocks that are used are analog clocks and digital clocks. The analog clock uses hands to tell time. Digital clock uses numbers to tell time. The parts of the clock on an analog clock: you have your face, which is the surface of the clock. You have your minute hand and your hour hand. Now the long hand is the minute hand, the short hand is the hour hand. When trying to remember which hand is the hour hand and which hand is the minute hand on an analog clock, think about the length of the words. Minute is a longer word than the word hour. The minute hand is longer than the hour hand on a clock. This is a digital clock. On the digital clock, you have numbers that are written. Now the first number is your hour. This tells you your hour. You have your colon and you have your minutes. Anytime you have 00, that represents o'clock. Boys and girls, if you have access to BrainPop, there is a parts of clock video that I would like you to watch. If not, that's okay. Now, we are going to be constructing a clock. So if you have a paper plate at home, you can use that. Or if you don't have a paper plate at home, you can use a sheet of paper and just draw a circle on your sheet of paper. And that is going to represent our analog clock that we're going to make. Now the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take the circular part and you're going to fold it into 2 equal parts. Now, do you remember what we call 2 equal parts? Think about it. If you said halves, you are correct. Okay, once you've folded your circle into halves, you're going to fold it, whoops, one more time. It's going to look like this. So you folded it in halves, you folded it down one more time. When you open that up, you have 4 equal parts. Do you remember what 4 equal parts are called? If you said fourths or quarters, you are correct. So this is what your clock should look like at this point. Now, you're going to take a pencil, a pen, marker, crayon, any type of writing utensil you may have, and you are going to draw a line. Now this is your vertical line from the top to the bottom. It's okay if it's not perfectly straight. And at the top, you are going to write the number 12. At the bottom, you are going to write the number 6. Now remember, when we're looking at this, we're talking about halves. There are 60 minutes in an hour, so half an hour would be 30 minutes, which is represented by the 6. So we put the 6 down at the bottom. Now, boys and girls, you're going to draw a horizontal line at this point. And just below the horizontal line, on this side, you're going to write the number 3. So far you should have a 12, a 3, and a 6. Now, you're going to write a 9 on this side. So 12, 3, 6, and 9. Now, the numbers 1 through 12 are used to represent time on a clock. So what you're going to do now is you're going to look at your clock and you're going to put equal spaces between the remaining numbers that you are filling in. After the 12, we're going to start with the number 1. And we're going to think, okay, I have to fit the numbers 1 and 2 into this area. So I'm going to write 1, 2, and I already have my 3. 1, 2, 3. Next comes 4 and 5. Now it's okay if the spaces are not perfect, just get them as close as you can. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now you've created the face of the clock. Now we're missing something on our analog clock. We're missing hands. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a sheet of paper and you're just going to cut a couple of strips, something like this. And let's think about what we talked about when we talked about how to determine which hand was the minute hand and which hand was the hour hand. The minute hand is the longer hand. The word minute is longer than the word hour. The hour hand is the shorter hand. So I'm just going to take one of my strips of paper and I'm going to cut a short hand and a long hand. Do we see the difference? Okay, now I can go ahead and cut an arrow or a point at the end of each one of these hands to create my hands. Now, I have something called a brad that I'm going to use to attach my hands. But if you don't have something like this, which you probably don't lying around at the house, you can just lay your clock flat and you can lay your hands on your clock like this to tell time. And I'm actually just going to punch mine through so that you can see more clearly. And of course, the hands are connected to the center, or the origin of the clock. And now I have my hour hand and my minute hand. Now, so that you don't forget, you can write on your hands. You can actually write the word minute. And you could write the word hour. Now, when we look at our clock, anytime the minute hand is pointed to the 12, we call that o'clock. So anytime that it's pointed to the 12, that's called o'clock. Now the hour hand, the short hand, is going to be pointed to the hour. And we have 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and when the hands line up, you have 12 o'clock. Now, anytime the minute hand is pointed to the 6, this represents whatever hour it is. So the hour here would be 12, and then 30. This would be 12:30, because there are 60 minutes in an hour. And your next skill in your next grade level will be to learn to count or to tell time by 5 minutes. But in first grade, we tell time to the nearest hour and half hour. So the half hour would be 30 minutes. So there are 60 minutes total in an hour. Half of that would be 30. So we could do this. We can write this by writing our hour, colon, and our minutes would be 30. This is how 12:30 would look on a digital clock. Now, as the minutes move around, of course, the hour is going to change, and I could actually show you this better on a different kind of clock. Let's look at another kind of clock. All right, boys and girls, let's look at this clock, and as we can see, we see the hour would be 12, and the minute hand is on the 6, which would represent 30 minutes. So the time is 12:30. Now, as the minute hand moves around, we can see that the hour hand is also moving too. So now we have 1 o'clock. The minute hand is pointing to the 12. The hour hand is pointing to the 1. Now, as time passes, the hour hand is moving between the 1 and 2. The minute hand is pointing to the 6. What time do you think it is? If you said 1:30, you are correct. As we keep moving, we now have 2 o'clock. And as the minute hand continues to move, we have 2:30, 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock, 9:30. I'm sorry, I missed 8:30, sorry. 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, 11:30, 12 o'clock. Now, what I want you to do with your clocks that you've made at home is I want you to practice with a family member telling time to the nearest hour and half hour. So, remember, the shorthand, the hour hand, is pointing to the hour, and the long hand, the minute hand, is pointing to the number of minutes. And at this point, your minute hand should be pointing to the 12, which is going to be o'clock for the minutes, or the 6, which is going to be whatever hour it is in 30 minutes. Or you can also say half past. So let's practice. Let's do a couple of examples. What time do you think it is? Let's look at the clock. If you said 2:30, you are correct. The hour hand is halfway between the 2 and the 3. It hasn't quite reached the 3 yet. And the minute hand is on the 30. Okay, let's do another one. What time is it? If you said 8 o'clock, you are correct. The hour hand is pointing to the 8. The minute hand is pointing to the 12, which represents o'clock. Okay, let's look at the clock. What time is it? If you said 6:30, you are correct. The hour hand is slightly past the 6. It hasn't quite reached the 7. And the minute hand is on the 6, which represents 30. So the time would be 6:30. What time is it? If you said 10 o'clock, you are correct. The hour hand is pointing to the 10 and the minute hand is pointing to the 12. All right, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed making your clocks, and I hope you spend lots of time practicing this skill with your family at home. Remember, we are telling time to the nearest hour and half hour. Thank you very much. Miss you. Bye.